Hello students, welcome to StudyIQ. In this session, we will be talking about social mobility. Okay, so we basically started off with social stratification. We have understood what is social stratification, and then we have talked about dimensions of social stratification, and we have discussed about various theories of social stratification. Functional theory we have discussed, Weberian theory we have discussed, okay, and Marx theory, that is a conflict theory also we have discussed. So these are the three theories which is related to stratification. Functional theorists try to understand everything in functional terms. They try to understand stratification, inequality, etc., which exist in society because it is inevitably, or it is functioning, it is fulfilling certain vital functions of society, and it is inevitable according to them. Okay, so that's why it is existing. When it comes to Marx understood it in terms of division of labor, and we have seen in detail that upper class, lower class, workers, bourgeois, their interests are contradictory, and that create conflict, and all those things we have discussed. When it comes to Weber, we understood in a three-dimensional pattern class, status, power, and how his understanding is better than Marx. We have also seen that. Okay, so now in this topic we are going to talk about the next topic that is in your chapter, that is social mobility, a very important topic. You will get question for sure. Even if the theories are asked in the paper, still you can see there can be a short note or long question can be from social mobility. It could be social mobility directly, or it could be social stratification and mobility, or it could be avenues of mobility, or it could be hindrances to mobility. In any way you can see question will be there from mobility if you see the previous papers. Okay, so we are going to do mobility, and I promise you, even before I'm starting the session, once you attend the session, you don't want to read anything for this particular topic. In fact, for this particular chapter, what all things that we have done, it is complete in itself. That note itself is enough. If you see the notes and the explanation, you will understand that. Okay, so here and if the question is asked, it's a must attempt question, you will be getting good marks. So the notes are prepared in such a way you get everything from this. Okay, so we will move towards social mobility. But before that, why we are studying social mobility, or what is actually social mobility. Social mobility means, that name itself will tell you, it is a movement of people from one position to other. It is a positional change, right? Mobility means it's a kind of movement from one position to other. Now, when we discussed about the types of stratification system, we have talked about two types, open system and closed system. So there briefly I've talked about what is social mobility. I've told you, if there are more avenues of social mobility, that means if there is a possibility of mobility, then that system of stratification is open system, like for example class system. If there are no avenues, if there are no sources or chances of mobility, then that is a closed system, for example caste system. So we have already discussed there exactly the same thing as what we are going to discuss here in slightly more detailed way. Okay, so social mobility is nothing but movement of people from one position to other. When we discuss it in terms of social stratification, it is a movement of a people or group from one strata to other. It could be an upward movement, or it could be a downward movement. When we talk about strata, let's talk about class system. It's like middle class, upper class, lower class. So it could be you born as a lower class and you can move up, you can be an upper class, or you born as an upper class and you can come down also. Like you born as a poor person, and can you become rich? Yes. If so, it's an open system. This is what social mobility. Or if you're born as rich, can you ever become poor? Yes. Okay, so this is what this one is downward mobility, the other is upward mobility. Rich becoming poor is a downward mobility, coming down, and poor becoming rich is an upward mobility, because going up. So mobility means movement of people between strata. Okay, it could be downward or upward. Now, why the study of social mobility is considered very important? Because study of social mobility will help you to understand the social inequality. Rather, you can easily understand social stratification patterns by understanding the social mobility pattern. So if I'm talking about social mobility, if I'm studying about social mobility, and if I'm concluding that there are more avenues of mobility present in any society, then that system of stratification is based on open system. More avenues of mobility indicates open stratification system. Less avenues of mobility indicates closed system. Okay, so basically by studying social mobility, we can understand the types of inequalities present in the system, whether the system is open or closed. Secondly, by studying mobility, you can also understand the nature of the society. For example, if there are more avenues, that indicates a modern society. In modern society, a lot of avenues are there in form of technology, in the form of education. In many ways, you can get social mobility. Okay, there are high possibility that you're born as a poor person, you can become rich in modern society, which was not available in traditional society. So, if I'm saying more avenues are available, you can understand the nature of society as modern society. Also, you can say if the avenues are less, it is an indication of a traditional society. So in this context, can I say social mobility is a prerequisite or an essential element of understanding modernism? Yes, social mobility is basically an essential element of understanding modernism or that process of modernization. No, so social mobility is a very essential for the process of modernization, because for the process of modernization or for modernization, mobility is essential. Modern society will have a lot of avenues or sources and courses for social mobility. So I hope you understood. So there's the importance of studying social mobility. Now, when we talk about the types of mobility, mainly the mobility can be understood as vertical or horizontal. Okay, so these are the two types of mobility, vertical and horizontal. What is a vertical mobility? Just like I've told you, it is a positional change, right? So changing from like a clerk to manager or a manager to clerk, both also possible. Or business fails, you are a rich person and your business failed and you becoming a poor person. Okay, so it is actually movement between strata, that is vertical. Horizontal means what? For example, you are a superintendent of police in one district and you got transferred to other district. Your rank remained the same, your position remained the same, only there is a geographical change. You may be a manager of a company and you may be transferred to some other location and you are a manager over there also. So there is no status change, there is no improvement in the position remained the same. What changed? And this is not that significant when it comes to sociology. Horizontal movement, this horizontal mobility is not important in sociology. So we give little stress for horizontal mobility, and we try to focus more on vertical mobility. So when we talk about vertical mobility, this is what I can say. It could be upward, it could be downward. Now further, if you see within vertical mobility, there are different types of mobility. For example, when we talk about one example, intergenerational mobility, intergenerational and intragenerational. Intergenerational and intragenerational. What is the difference between these two? Intergenerational means what? It is between generation, like inter-college cricket match, right? You say it is between colleges. So here between generation, two generation we are talking about. And intergenerational, for example, son of a farmer becoming an IAS officer. So son of farmer becoming IAS officers. So we are talking about two generation. So there is a mobility and it is an upward mobility. So it is an intergenerational upward mobility. Here also you can see upward and downward. Can you give me an example for intergenerational downward mobility? Son of an IAS officer becoming a clerk. So IAS officer, son of IAS becoming a clerk. This is downward. This is downward. This is upward intergenerational and downward intergenerational. I hope it is clear. Then what is intragenerational? This is a mobility experienced by a person in his own lifetime, intrageneration, within the same generation, within your own lifetime. Like for example, you born as poor, you becoming rich. You born as a poor person, like a son of a farmer, and you becoming, you born as a poor person and you achieve certain things. You get education, you get better education, and you get better occupation. So you will improve your status. From your perspective, if you see, that's intragenerational social mobility. Or for example, when we talk about land reform. Now intrageneration also, it can be upward and downward. So what do you think land reform is an example for upward or downward? It is for both. Why? Because those peasants or the landless people who got land after the reform, they experience what mobility? Upward mobility, because they got the land. On the other hand, the landlords, the zemindars who lost the land, they experience what mobility? The downward mobility. So land reform is an example for intragenerational, within person's own lifetime, upward as well as downward. Downward for landlords, upward for the landless peasants. I hope this is clear. So that's about intergenerational and intragenerational. See, we have already discussed about stratification and many other topics. So if you have any doubt, you can get in touch with me here. That's my Instagram ID. You can join my Telegram channel. So this is my Telegram channel, Zia Safir. Okay, Telegram channel, ZIASAFIR. or the Instagram ID is the same. You can get in touch with me here, or if you want to attend my regular classes or live classes, online classes anyway you are getting from StudyIQ. But apart from that, if you need to have mentorship program, and if you have already written mains and if you don't have enough marks, if you need a guidance or any help, we have the personal mentorship program and everything. So you can get in touch with me. This is my contact number, 9790892697 or 9895577775. So if you wish to write the test series, or if you want your papers to be evaluated by me, okay, you can get in touch with me. So if you need my Facebook ID, this is my Facebook ID, Zia Safir or Zia IAS. Okay, you can search my classes here, Zia IAS, you'll get all my classes over there. So okay, so this is the first type. Second type is absolute or relative. Okay, so absolute, not or, absolute and relative social mobility. So we have already discussed about absolute and relative poverty in our economy classes. Okay, so here it is almost the same. What was absolute poverty? It is based on a poverty line. If you are above poverty line, then APL, below poverty line, BPL. So relative means it is basically measuring inequality. So here also, when we talk about absolute and relative, I'll show you with example. So let's suppose there are two persons, A and B. Okay, B is a clerk. Okay, in fact, A is also a clerk. Both are clerks. Okay, so they are friends. Okay, they both are having the same position in a company. Now, after some time, what happened is B got promoted and B became a manager. Okay, so what happened? There is a positional change here. So there is an upward mobility. For whom? For this B, there is an upward mobility. So this is an absolute mobility. So B experienced an absolute mobility by gaining this. So he gained it, he gained the position. So upward absolute mobility. So B experienced upward absolute mobility. Okay, now what about A? A is not losing anything, he remained the same, so he is a clerk. So can we say downward? No. And his salary also remained the same, everything remained the same, so he is not experiencing any downward mobility, he is not losing anything. But relatively, he will compare it with whom? B. So he experienced, A here experienced a relative downward mobility, not downward mobility, relative downward mobility without losing anything. Normally, when you lose something, downward mobility, like in case of land reform, I've told you those landlords who lost the land experienced a downward mobility. Here he's not losing anything, but still downward mobility, but it's a relative downward mobility because you are making a comparison with your friend. So relative downward mobility even without losing anything. So A experience relative downward. See, I'm trying to make you understand the concepts clearly. I'm not just talking about, see, dictation is very easy and giving notes and all these things are very easy. But I'm trying to focus on the concepts. Once you know the concepts, I'm sure that you will be in a position to write your own answer. And in sociology, it's more as application. Once you know that, at any point of time, you will be in a position to write. It's not that you're by hurting and you're going to reproduce exactly the same thing. That's not desirable, that's not required, and that's not possible also. So try to understand each and every concepts in sociology, and once you understood concepts, I'm sure that you will be writing like a sociologist. And in fact, you need to write like a sociologist. Not like some guides you studied. Okay, so a lot of guides are available, ready-made answers are there, you're preparing that and you are reproducing the same. That will not do anything for you. I have given mains 3 times, I have cleared mains 3 times, and in all those times I was sociology topper. So with that experience, I'm telling you, you need to write with proper perspective and you need to write as a sociologist. And I guarantee you, once we complete our course, once you're done with this classes, you will be getting a flavor of a sociologist at least. Okay, if you cannot become a professional sociologist, and that's not required, at least you will be in a position to write the exam as a sociologist. Okay, so I hope you understood this, absolute and relative. Next is objective and subjective. Very easy only. That name itself will tell you. Objective and subjective social mobility. So objective means, see, we have discussed about objectivity, subjectivity. Objectivity in quantitative and subjectivity in qualitative, or positivism, non-positivism, scientific, humanistic. All these approaches are already, I'm expecting that it might have been printed in your mind. That's the kind of discussions that we have done. If you didn't understood even after watching my classes on those topics, you cannot understand from anywhere else. Okay, see, this is not arrogance, you don't take it in that way, this is a confidence. Okay, and I'm passing exactly the same on to you, because I know the concepts clearly, so I can explain the concepts clearly and I can make you understand also. That's why I speak like this. Don't take it as arrogance. Okay, so there's a confidence, and I want you to also to have that confidence on each topic, whether economy that I'm handling, or history, or quantitative aptitude, or ethics, or sociology. I can do the same thing in all these subjects. Okay, so here objective and subjective. When we talk about what is objective, that is something in quantitative terms, whether the mobility is in quantitative terms, like increase in income. So let's suppose my salary today is 2 lakh, okay, and next month or next year it is 3 lakh. Then there is a quantitative improvement, there is a social mobility over there. Okay, I can change my class, like the kind of food I eat I can change, the kind of dress I wear I can change, and the car in which I am traveling I can change. So a lot of changes visible. So there is a social mobility which is quantitative in nature, that is objective. Like not only by education, occupation, in all these ways it can be understood. Subjective means it's all about perceptions. Even if you don't have good job, but you think that it is a good job, then that is what I mean by subjective. Or for example, you became an IAS officer, okay, and you are one of your neighbor is a doctor. Okay, so you are an IAS officer and one of your neighbor is a doctor, and one more person is there who is also a neighbor X. So he don't know about you. Okay, he don't know about what is IAS and all those things, but he appreciate the doctor more, and he considered doctor as superior. So this is what you mean by perception of that person. So for him, whose position is more important, for that person, even though you're an IAS officer, he considered this person as superior. That is his perception. But IAS officer role is superior. I've told you why. Even again, there is a difficulty in understanding whether doctor is IAS officer is superior. There is obviously a value commitment or value preference here, subjectivity is here. But I've told you how can you judge this functional importance in the previous session when we discussed about Davis and Moore theory. By the degree to which the one is functionally unique. So here this is unique, so I can say this is superior. Or by the degree to which this one, the other positions are depending on the one in question. So here more people are depending on IAS officer. So in that context, I can tell that IAS officer is superior, but your neighbor is not ready to accept you as a superior over a doctor, because it's on his own perception. Or you may be a teacher and you consider yourself as superior than an IAS officer. Okay, so I hope you understood. So it's all about perception of the individual. Then next one is structural and circulation. Structural and circulation social mobility. So structural social mobility means you are a part of an occupational structure. Understand it, you are part of an occupational structure already, and over a period of time within that occupational structure, some technological advancement or some training, some educational qualification, etc., some improvements happen, so you experience a social mobility. For example, you were working in a bank. Traditionally you were working, traditional banks, it's all about huge books and no computers, nothing, right? So everything is manually you need to do. So you will be so late to go home. But now, because of advancements in technology, because of computerization, you can do everything through computers, so that you can go home in much earlier, and you can do some other activity also, so you feel mobile. Okay, so you get a kind of mobility over there. Or it could be achievement of some training, or achievement of attainment of some skills or training, etc. You feel some mobility. That's what structural mobility. Circulation means you are not part of the occupational structure. When you enter into the occupational structure, you feel some mobility. That is what circulation mobility. Now one more is there, that is, I'll write here, sponsored and contested. So sponsored means you got some sponsorship, like for example this reservation programs, okay, protective discrimination. So it's a kind of support is there. Okay, in that context it is sponsored mobility. The mobility is acquired through some support. I'm talking about reservation or protective discrimination or anything. Contested means it is through open competition. So this name itself will tell you. So we have talked about horizontal, vertical. Apart from that, we talked about intergenerational, intragenerational, absolute, relative, objective, subjective, structural, circulational, and sponsored and contested. And I don't think that you will face any problem in any of this. And we have in fact done with social mobility. Nothing more is there. So this is what you need to write. Okay, and I'm expecting that everything should have been printed in your mind now. If not now, there is no point. Okay, so now here after this we need to also talk about avenues or sources and courses of social mobility. What I'll do is, what all things that we have done so far, I'll rather than dictation, I will explain with the PDF also. I'll read out the PDF and I'll explain between points, and then we will move to avenues of social mobility, and we'll see also the hindrances of social mobility. Okay, so we will move to the PDF now. Okay, so social mobility can be broadly defined as change in the position of an individual or group. So it is a change in position of an individual or group in the society. Specifically in the context of stratification, if you talk in the context of stratification, it is a movement from one strata to other. It is a movement of an individual or group from one strata to another. The study of social mobility is important in the light of the following points. Studying the nature of social mobility helps us in understanding the nature of social inequalities present in society. Thus, indirectly, in order to understand the social stratification, it is necessary to understand the pattern of social mobility. In this context, if the social mobility is less, what does that mean? It is a closed system, like caste system. So it is a closed system, and the mobility avenues are more means it is considered as open. So I hope this paragraph you understood. Now, social mobility also reflects a process of change in society. Ever increasing avenues of social mobility in a particular society indicate the existence of a more dynamic society. More changes means more dynamic the society is. This concept has also been used to know the nature of the whole society as well. Less number of avenues indicate towards a traditional society. So less avenues, a traditional society, and more avenues is a modern society. In this context, social mobility is considered as an integral dimension of the process of modernization. Okay, so I hope you understood this paragraph also. Now, types of social mobility: horizontal and vertical. Now, vertical, movement from one strata to another. Horizontal, movement within the same strata. Okay, upward social mobility, upward vertical promotion is an example. Downward vertical mobility, business fail. You can write land reform in both cases. Okay, now next, this is one more example. You don't worry about this example, I've just added over here, and this we will be doing in detail in Merton. When we discuss about Merton, you will understand it there, but just keep this point in mind. Okay, don't forget it. Oh, you will not forget it, I'm sure, once we've done this in Merton, then you won't forget it. But as of now, you're not having any idea about this, so just keep this in mind. We will do it later. So horizontal social mobility is more of geographical in nature. Okay, as in terms of status, it is similar. Status is not changing, right? It is a transfers. Sociologically, little stress is laid on horizontal social mobility. Now, types of mobility. Social mobility is also seen at the level of family. Okay, in this context, two types of mobility are identified: intergenerational and intragenerational. Intergenerational, I've told you, refers to the positional difference between two generations, son of a clerk becoming an IAS officer. Here, upward and downward possible. So I have given only one example here. Okay, you can also write the IAS officer's son becoming clerk. But see, there is no point in writing too much of examples. If you read what other people tell, teachers say, they will tell you to add more and more case studies, more and more examples, more and more thinkers. No, that is not required. You see any sociologist writing, do you think they keep on adding examples? They make a point, they put a point, and to substantiate the point, you need example. One example is sufficient. Beyond that, it's not required. It's a waste of time, and it's a waste of space also for you. You cannot keep on writing examples. If you keep on writing examples, I can write hundreds of examples. Just because you know 2-3 examples, it doesn't mean that you need to write everything in that particular area. If you want to substantiate, you made a point, and to convince that point, then you need to use one example, maximum one example. Similarly, when you raise a point, to convince that, you can quote one thinker. It is not required that you need to quote everyone. For a different point, you can use different thinker. So if you see my answers which I am giving in PDF, I don't use thinkers unnecessarily, but wherever is it required, I am using thinkers also to substantiate my point. And I am using examples also everywhere which is required, and I am not using more than one. You can see here there is a classic example. I can write 2-3 here, but I am just writing only one, because that's what expected. Even if you might have seen my comprehension classes on CAT I have taken. So in that, when we are in the 10 golden rules of reading comprehension, I used to tell that when you're reading the passage, you skip the example. Because once you know the content, or once you know the argument of the author, the point of the author, then the next line, if it is example, just skip it. You don't waste the time in reading that. If there is a question from example, you can come back and read the question and you can solve that question. But if there is no question, it's a waste of time, because you already understood the point that the author is saying. Okay, so there is no point in keep on writing examples, keep on writing case studies. If you made a point, substantiate it with one example, one case study, one thinker. Don't go beyond that. It's a waste of time and it's a waste of space. And I'm telling you, you need to write as a sociologist. Okay, again and again I'm telling you, and I'm sure that I can make you a sociologist. Okay, doesn't matter what is your background, because I am from an engineering background. If I can do it, you can also do it. So intragenerational mobility is the mobility experienced by a person during his own lifetime. Land reforms, we have discussed this. During this, poor people got more land and rich people lost their land. So here also upward and downward possible. Apart from this, other types of social mobility has also been defined to better understand the mobility pattern in society. Absolute and relative social mobility. Okay, so what is absolute mobility? It refers to actual change in position of a person, whereas relative social mobility is judged in comparison with others. If a person experiences absolute upward social mobility by gaining something, in our example B, gaining something, he experienced an upward mobility. Some other person, in our example it was A, experienced relative downward mobility without losing anything. Okay, similarly objective and subjective social mobility. Objective social mobility is measured in terms of quantitative criteria like income, education, occupation, consumption, etc. Whereas subjective social mobility is understood in terms of individuals' own perception about social mobility. Okay, then structural and circulation social mobility. Structural social mobility is the mobility of people who are already part of occupational structure, and by virtue of change in technology, skill, education, policy, they experience a mobility. People become socially mobile. On the other hand, there are people who are outside occupational structure. When they enter into occupation, it is referred to as circulation social mobility. Easy one. Sponsored and contested social mobility. Sponsored mobility is one which a person acquires due to some policy or support, reservation, protective discrimination, etc. On the other hand, contested mobility is based on open competition. Now I'll show you mains question. Compare is not required. Social stratification and social mobility. So what you need to do here is, you talk about the stratification, how it is. We discuss the process, right? So first there are differences. It could be natural or social. When you attach certain values to these differences, inequalities will be created. And when these inequalities are identified in terms of pattern, there is a stratification. And there are 4 different steps or process here: differentiation, evaluation, ranking, and rewarding, right? So you need to explain this in one paragraph, and then here differentiation, ranking, evaluation, rewarding. Then you talk about what is social mobility. Then you talk about the relation, open and closed system. Okay, it all depends on social mobility. The chances of mobility: open stratification system, less chances for mobility, closed stratification system. Mobility is a product of stratification system. Why mobility is a product of? If stratification is not there, we won't study mobility, right? Mobility is a movement within strata. Then different types of mobility. Now, even if the question is simply social mobility, you need to write all these things. You need to talk about stratification, because mobility is a product of stratification. So you should be having this idea. Even if the question is simply about this, you need to write about stratification. So all these contents should be there in your answer. If it is a long answer, all these should be there. If it is short note, you can directly move to the answer. Okay, we will do all those things when we do the test series. When you're writing the test series with me, we'll take care of all those things. Okay, you will write it properly, and I'll see how you're writing and everything. We will correct it. Now next one, now next topic is avenues of social mobility. What are the chances, what are the choices, what are the sources, what are the causes? In any way you can see this in the syllabus. So in traditional societies, as I have already told you, avenues are limited. Most common avenues are: you gain political power through wars, success in business, inheritance of wealth, sponsorship by the king. So these are limited avenues in traditional society. Modern society, more avenues. See, again, I am giving here all these are in bullet points. But in your exam, what do you think? Bullet points or paragraphs? People will tell you, most of the people I have seen you, even my preparation also, people used to tell me, explain in bullet points, you can write a lot of things and you can impress the examiner. No, that is possible in GS. Do you think you can write an essay in bullet points? Exactly the same is the case with optional. You need to write as a matured person. You need to write as a sociologist. And I'm telling you, you cannot be a professional sociologist, but I've told you now, I've promised you, once you complete the classes, you will have that sociologist flavor. You will start writing like that. Especially after the test series and everything, you'll start writing like that only. I understand if it is a short note 10 marker, if there is no space and if you need to write many things, then you can go for that. Because not much sociological perspective is required. But 20 marker, you have to write as a sociologist. You have to show that character. So it is actually a reflection of the character. Otherwise, you're reading a textbook and reproducing, that doesn't show that character. Okay, so through the mains and even in interview also, it all reflect that character and personality. So you should be writing like a sociologist, no doubt, and you will be writing as a sociologist, I promise you. Just follow the classes completely. Okay, just follow the classes completely, you will be writing as a sociologist. At least paper 1 once we complete. Whatever possible topics I can do, that I'll do here. Okay, and once you complete that, you will be writing as a sociologist. But mind it, 20 markers, don't try to write as bullet points. But questions like comparison between sociology, economy, etc., you can make column and you can write, this is sociology, this is economy. This is sociology, this is political science. But don't do that in case of 20 markers, essays, etc. That's not desirable, that's not required, that's not good. Okay. So in modern society, yeah, we have many avenues: political system, democratic society, representative form, contesting elections, acquiring power. It is open to all, anybody can be powerful. Economic system, it is skill-based occupations. These are easy, that's why I'm just moving fast, okay? Expansion in occupation, increase in economic activities, vast employment opportunities. Education, it is open to all. Massification we have discussed when we discuss about, Wood's dispatch, okay? Medium of acquiring skills, increased awareness, enhancement of choices, okay. Then technology, constant improvement in technology leading to emergence of new specializations, saving of time. Culture, modernization of culture, more freedom, relaxation of rigid norms and values. Now, so these are the avenues. Now, what are the problems? What are the hindrances? This also should be there in your answer. So poverty is the big problem, lack of resources, poor health, poor education, less choices. Illiteracy, less awareness, low skill level, and restricted choices. Cultural hindrances, cultural bias towards a particular occupation, like sexual division of labor. Okay, like females to be doing certain jobs like teachers and nurses, etc. So that's a cultural bias. Lack of freedom, low preference for education, like Muslims, low preference for education. Okay, stress on family values, religious restrictions, etc. So I hope you understood what all things we have discussed. So there is no need to have any problem. So economic system, okay, education, open to all, skill-based occupation. If you have skill, you will not face any problem. Whatever situation you will be put in, if you have any skill, you will be able to survive. Okay, so I think it's fine. Yeah, psychological factors, just for the sake of giving one more hindrances we have written here: laziness, lack of motivation, lack of information, resistance to change, inability to accept new, etc. Okay, so I'm expecting that you understood it completely. If you have any doubt, still you can get in touch with me here. This is my Instagram ID and I've already given you my contact number. So this is my contact number: 98955 or 9790-892-697. You can get in touch with me in WhatsApp, Telegram, or any social media for any help which is required for your preparation. Not only optional, GS also. So see you guys. Thank you. So that's about the session. I hope you understood everything that we have discussed today. If you have any doubt in any of the videos that we have discussed so far, you can get in touch with me here. That's my Instagram ID. Okay. Or you can join the Telegram channel. You will get all my videos over there. Everything is there. Or you can see here, this is the Telegram channel, or this is the Instagram ID. These two are my Facebook page. You can get in touch with me in any of this. If you want to learn economy with me or history with me or general studies, any subjects, you can, if you need regular classes, you can get in touch with me, or the online classes are available with StudyIQ. You will get all those classes. Still, you will get my YouTube videos in this Telegram channel. Okay. So I hope you understood everything that we have discussed. So see you guys. Thank you.